Good afternoon, Doctor Who fans, and welcome. You know, on Whoniversals, we've reviewed quite a few Doctor Who things. We've reviewed a couple of the television stories, both classic and new. So, examples like Attack of the Cybermen, Remembrance of the Daleks, School Reunion, and mainly done very recent stories when they've been coming out, like Series 10, Series 11. We've done quite a few of the audios, Chimes of Midnight, Mutant Phase, Holy Terror from the main range, specials like the Maltese Penguin, box sets like Dark Eyes, War Master, had these very special free audio stories that were former Doctor Who magazine releases, such as The Ratings War and Living Legend. And we've done other parts of the Doctor Who visual media like K9 and Company, A Girl's Best Friend, the spin-off series, live streams on the Class episodes, and we've done a review of a BBV production, starting When Being You Isn't Enough. So we've done quite a few, we've covered quite a few things, but one area we haven't covered are the books. And we're about to check one out today. We're going to be looking at one of the latest released Doctor Who books. I am, of course, talking about Scratchman, based on the original planned film by Tom Baker and Ian Marter. Tom Baker has adapted this story, with help from James Goss, into a new novel, Doctor Who Scratchman, released in January earlier this year. So let's get started. Before we do, I'd just like to mention that the reason my copy's got kind of dents at the top of its cover is because I've been taking on my train commutes to university. See my review of Underground Overground on my personal channel for more information. So anyway, Scratchman. Okay, so the story of Scratchman is the Doctor, Sarah Jane Smith and Harry Sullivan, so I'm guessing this is taking place during season 12, unless Harry decided to just join the team at some point during late season 13, early season 14 for an adventure or two. But the gang just land on a Scottish island and they just decide to have a picnic, some fun. You know, stress of time travelling, fighting all these evil monsters and aliens and Davros and all that. And idiotic humans. They've got to have some fun. However, an evil force is at work. And it's got scarecrows turning people, killing people and turning them into fertilizer and growing from their strength, or by turning them into further scarecrows. So the Doctor, Harry and Sarah have to save the remaining villagers from this threat. However, the spoiler alert, they can't. They're either turned into scarecrows or fertilizer, or a tree in one person's case. And it's revealed that this villainous Scratchman has been trying to get into our universe and has been trying to use this portal, and he's teamed up with the Cybermen to create a new breed of, well, Cyberman, I suppose, using these scarecrows and this upgrading technology, I suppose. But in the end, Scratchman kidnaps Harry and Sarah, and the Doctor has to go in and then chase him down and pretty much locate him and try and rescue them, as well as trying to stop Scratchman. And in the end, they have to try and defeat Scratchman on a pinball machine that Harry accidentally thinks up of, and get some interesting stuff in the Hell world. And throughout the book, there are interruptions by what is presumably following from the events of the end of the story, where the Doctor is brought in by the Gallifreyans to basically have a bit of a talk down, and almost executed for putting the entirety of the universe in jeopardy of Scratchman trying and leaving the portal open as he goes to find his friends. However, the Doctor is able to teach the Time Lords about fear, and is able to just basically swan off, despite their disdain. And to be honest, this is the weakest part of the novel, the Time Lord bits, the Doctor's teaching them of fear. it doesn't actually feel needed. And after reading Engines of War, a story where the Time Lords were pretty much dicks in that story, but it made sense because Time War stuff. Yeah, the Time Lords are probably dickish to the Doctor in pre-Time War, and of course very much post-Time War. See the End of Time, Hellbent, not so much Day of the Doctor, but here they don't really have a proper reason. You could cut it out and it wouldn't make much difference. I mean, yeah, they're probably worried about the portal being opened and stuff, possible evil, but they're willing to kill the Doctor after he's stopped it. I mean, it's a bit vague to start with, and then we get to the end, and I'm not sure. I mean, just the Time Lord stuff just doesn't need to be there. That's basically it. The only good thing about it being there is that it kind of chops up parts of the story into sections, like 2 chapters, then another one of these Time Lord interventions, and then another chapter or 2 or 3. But it doesn't quite work in the context of the story. You could have removed these bits and you wouldn't lose anything. And in terms of a film, they're basically interruptions to what is basically the narrative, or basically a third part of the film that feels like a tacked on ending. Either way, it just doesn't work. I mean, maybe these bits were added in for the book. Maybe that is. If these weren't for the film, this is probably added in for the book, or maybe the Doctor's at the start talking about it, and then at the end, maybe there's a halfway intervention as well. But it doesn't feel necessary, basically. You could have just had the story itself and lose the Time Lord stuff, and nothing would change. Whew. They've got that out of the way. Second of all, actually, I think there's some pretty good character development throughout the story. I think got some good stuff with villagers. And then part 2 sees some pretty nice characters in the hell, basically, and Scratchman is basically the devil, and it's got some really good stuff. And there's some final stuff at the end. Besides the final Time Lord stuff, you got a PS from the Doctor, which is fun, and a note from Sarah Jane Smith, which is also pretty funny as well. You can basically imagine Elizabeth Sladen trying to get the last word into the story at some point. It's got some good stuff. I think the story is well done, and I think it's just got some really good stuff. My only complaint is that I think it does go on a little bit too long in places. I think it could have been a bit faster paced around the bits. I'm glad that it splits the 2 parts of the story in half. Part 1 basically is the long night, and that's when the Doctor, Harry and Sarah are on the beach, and then they discover all the stuff happening and have to protect the villagers, and then halfway through they're kidnapped and the Doctor has to go in after them. And then book 2 is Scratchman, and then that's all the stuff in the alternative universe. And considering the Doctor is trying to teach the Time Lords fear, I'm not really sensing that much fear from Scratchman, supposedly the most scariest thing in the universe. I'm not feeling the fear. I'm not feeling scared. I think that's another thing. I'm not scared. I don't know if... I think this is something that's also happening with the TV series. I'm not scared anymore, but that might be me because I'm getting older. I've been watching the TV series for about 13 years come this May. But... And maybe over these... I mean, I wasn't even scared by the silence when they first appeared in 2011. After 5 years almost of watching the show, I'd started to not get so scared of Doctor Who monsters. Not even the new ones, which are even better designed. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's something of getting older, being late 11, 12, and now 19, nearly 20. It's just something. Maybe I've grown out of being afraid of Doctor Who monsters. I could just enjoy the story, watch how it goes down. I mean, yeah, if I was in the story, I'd probably be scared, at least for a bit. Yeah, but as for this, I don't know, I'm not scared. Maybe the film version, I might have been a bit scared, or maybe I would have found him a bit more threatening. But Scratchman, I don't know, I think part of it works well as a book, like the Fourth Doctor basically narrating the story. It's basically, that works for book form. But I think everything else works better in the original movie concept. I think it would have made a great script. But I don't think it's that great of a novel, besides the Fourth Doctor narration, and basically it's him telling the story. I think that, when turning it into a book, I think that was the best way to go down. So I'll give Tom Baker that. That was the best route to go down. However, for the film, I think it would have been better as a film, and I think the story itself would have worked better as the film. I really wish that actually got made. I mean, a great book, don't get me wrong, but I wish the film had got made. Personally, like I said, I think it's better. I think it works better on film concept. Second of all, I'm a film person, and third of all, we would have got another Doctor Who film, a proper one at that. The TV movie technically is a television movie, and the Dalek films are not really canon, and the rest are basically episodes shown at the cinema or BFI. They don't really count, not even Day of the Doctor. So we're still K9 Timequake. If that ever gets made, that is technically a spin-off. So we haven't really gotten a proper Doctor Who film. The closest best thing is the TV movie, followed closely by the Dalek films, but they still don't quite count. So it would have been great to see Scratchman on the big screen, or small screen in my case. But still, that would have been fun. Maybe there would have been some anniversary screenings around 2017, 2018. But you know, it's still a good story. It's got some good stuff. It's not completely unscary for me. I mean, there are some creepy bits. I just don't think Scratchman is the scariest thing ever made, as it's building it up to be. And I honestly don't think the Doctor's that scared until towards the end, either. I mean, I think he reveals what he's afraid of, but it doesn't really help Scratchman. And to be honest, Scratchman is towards the point of defeat anyway, so yeah, basically the Doctor wins. Woo! We can all go home. Yeah, I think it would have been better realised as the film, basically. I don't know, I think I just wanted to see the film version, but I'm glad that Tom Baker was able to get a book out on it, so that's cool, and it is a good story, I'll give him that. I just don't know, I don't think it's 100% works as a book, though. Apart from the fact that it's narrated by the Fourth Doctor, and like I said, I think that's probably the best route he could have gone down. But overall, it's a good story, but it's not an amazing story. I think maybe if it was presented visually, it might have done a good job. Maybe if Big Finish do a adaptation with a full cast, maybe it would sound better. But I don't think they're likely to do that. First of all, Elizabeth Sladen and Ian Marter are not around. They wouldn't be able to reprise their roles. Second of all, they're not really making novel adaptations anymore. They stopped a few years ago after Cold Fusion. I believe that was the 11th one they did. So they've stopped doing novel adaptations since then, and that was about 2017, I think. Otherwise, they would also ask for Engines of War to be done, even though John Hurt isn't around anymore. And that one also got the problem of the War Doctor's license at Big Finish, if that's in question at the moment. So yeah, but if at all possible, can we have Scratchman and Engines of War in novel adaptations, Big Finish, maybe in the not too distant future? If you can find a way around the problems. But maybe Tom Baker's narration in the audiobook may also help. I'm not sure. But as the novel, it works in a first-person point of view with the Doctor narrating, and this does help tie in with the Time Lord stuff, although I think the Doctor could have just been writing it down in his diary and it would still work. He could be writing a novel for a child who's unwell, and he's talking about one of his greatest adventures. Well, I wouldn't say it's one of his greatest adventures, but, an adventure that they don't know about, and he's just talking to them about it. Just anything other than that bloody Time Lord stuff, I really can't stand that. Not at all, and I think it's unnecessary. Just anything else, an excuse to have it in first person. Other than that, but besides that, just doesn't quite work. I'm not sure it is. I don't know. It doesn't work. Even having the Cybermen and the first three Doctors, again, actors playing those roles, tricky to get those in, especially. And in the film, it would have been tricky to get First Doctor in as well. If those bits were in the original script as opposed to the new bits of the book, which it could have been. I'm not sure. I will say this about the book: they will have characters that you can't get back on TV or film or in audio now. it can do these adventures. I am confused about where in the continuity it's supposed to be set. Is it supposed to be season 12? Is it pre-season 13? Or is it a little bit afterwards? I think, is there a mention to one of the season 13 stories after Terror of the Zygons in there? I'm sure there is. It's a bit odd. But overall, some good stuff. But it's not quite perfect. It's a good read, though. So I'm going to give Scratchman an 8 out of 10. Like I said, I've got a couple of issues. It's not that scary. I don't think Scratchman's as big of a baddie as he could have been presented. The time stuff is unnecessary, and I absolutely really can't stand it. There is one funny bit though, where one of them is basically, is Harry Sullivan died! When they think Harry Sullivan's dead, and they are a bit shocked and upset about it, even though previously they've been making the arguments that the whole universe is more important than one life. And then they get upset when Harry supposedly dies, and they're a bit more concerned about Sarah Jane. But you know, I just have a couple of issues that I've mentioned throughout the review. But I do think it's written well, and it's they went down the right route in telling it, and it's done a pretty good job. So, and I'm even invested in some of the side characters who we don't get that much time with, and it's actually quite a shame that they all die. All the villagers, spoiler alert, at the end of part 1. That's such a shame. But I suppose their ghost manifestos in hell, their spirits or whatever, could help save the day towards the end of part 2. So, overall, it's a good story, but it just has a couple of problems. And I think, had it become the film that it always intended to be, I think it would have been able to iron out some of these problems and improve on other ones, make them much better, such as making Scratchman a bit more scary, maybe, or building up to be a big bad, and it probably wouldn't need the Time Lord stuff. So, there you go. But it's still good. I truly recommend it, that you all check it out, and you give it a read. I mean, I don't know how you take it, whether you prefer a film version, maybe an audio version. Would you prefer the audiobook version narrated by Tom Baker, or do you prefer reading it for yourself at your own pace? Drop a comment below, let me know, and we'll see how it goes. I haven't heard the audiobook version yet, so I'm just judging the story based on the book. From me reading the book, like if I was reviewing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which I have over here. Here, I would only be... I haven't seen the play yet, the play itself performed on stage, so I'd be just judging it by the book. And the same would be here. Here I can't judge it based on the film. I can't judge it based on an audio play. I can't even base it on the audio book version. I just basing my opinions on the physical copy that I have, and a hardback at that. I'm sure paperback will come at a later date. Probably. I don't know if I think Engines of Wars might have. So here we go, the first Doctor Who book review on the Whoniversals channel. It's positive, but not gushing over it. I do have quite a few issues with it, but on the whole, I think the story is a good story, so I do like it. So there you go. That's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or whatever's going on. So I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.